Hey guys, what is up? It is the Fast Break Report here, bringing you guys another vlog. So, in this one, I wanted to talk about my Eastern Conference standings for the 2022-2023 NBA season. Definitely some surprises on this list. I moved some stuff around. I'll explain why I moved some of these things around, why certain teams rank where they are, and so on and so forth. But let's go ahead and get right into it. So, number one, with the number one seed in the East, I have the Cleveland Cavaliers this year. Reason being is they are a relatively deep team. Their schedule strength falls between like the easy and like average range. So I have a feeling they're going to win a lot of games. And just the amount of talent that they have, plus they acquired Donovan Mitchell in the offseason. Anytime you have a backcourt of Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, and your front court consists of Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, you're gonna win a lot of games, okay? And their bench, they're pretty deep on their bench. I mean, they got Ricky Rubio, Kevin Love, Karis LeVert, Jetty Osman. They're loaded, okay? Like, I'm gonna call it what it is. I wouldn't be surprised if JB Bickerstaff wins Coach of the Year this year. I really think the Cavaliers are gonna go on a tear. They're going to be a fun team to watch. I really look for Evan Mobley to take a step forward this year. We saw what Darius Garland is capable of last year when he took over for Colin Sexton. Cleveland is my number one team. I think they're going to be one of those teams. I don't think they're going to make it even to the second round of the playoffs once they get into the dog days of, the playoffs and having to play against like Milwaukee and Philadelphia, so on and so forth. I just feel like they're like a second round team. I just feel like that's kind of where they're at. I don't know. It could change as the season goes on. But I just feel like they're a very young team. They'll get to the playoffs. It's just, I don't think they're going all the way. Number two is the Milwaukee Bucks. Giannis is going to continue to do his thing, man. Giannis is a freak of nature. Milwaukee has like one of the easiest schedules in the league this year. Milwaukee could even end up as number one. They have a very easy schedule, but because Cleveland is a little more loaded than Milwaukee is, I have them at one. But Milwaukee's still going to be a top three team, man. I'm gonna call it what it is. Number three here is going to be a little controversial, and I'll explain why I have them at number three. But number three, I have the Philadelphia 76ers. And a lot of people are like, well, why don't you have the Celtics there? I will explain that when I get to the Celtics. But I have Philadelphia there because, A, Joel Embiid is an MVP caliber player by himself. He played last season, basically willed them to the playoffs by himself for most of the season until they traded for James Harden. And speaking of James Harden, he's been putting in work in the offseason, man. He's looking slimmer. He's looking very good. And the first game that James Harden ever played with Joel Embiid, they went off. And I just really have a feeling that we're going to get that showing a lot more this year. And anytime you have James Harden and Joel Embiid on the same team, and the idea that they've got Tobias Harris, I think they added DeAnthony Melton to their team. They have Tyrese Maxey. They're gonna be a good team. I feel like James Harden could potentially return to like MVP form, and what I mean by that is I don't think he's going to be in the MVP race, but I do think we're going to get at least flashes of the old James Harden this year, especially with given how much he's been in the gym. I just like Philadelphia at number three. I don't know why, I just feel like they're going to be a really, really good regular season team. So I got Philadelphia at number three. Number four is the Atlanta Hawks. Listen, getting DeJounte Murray was huge for them. I don't think people realize how huge it is. He is a great player. He is a good all-around guy. He can distribute the ball. He plays defense. He can shoot. He's capable of a little bit of everything. You put him next to Trae Young, all of a sudden it frees up Trae Young a lot. They still have Clint Capella. DeAndre Hunter looked very good at the end of last season, especially in the playoffs. I like Atlanta, man. I think I look for, I'm going to say this name wrong, but Onyeka Okongwu, I know his last name's Okongwu. I look for him to have potentially a little bit of a breakout year this year. I like Atlanta. I think they're going to shock a lot of people, too. I think that backcourt of DeJounte Murray and Trae Young is going to be something serious. So, I got Atlanta at number 4. Number 5 is the Miami Heat. Now, I struggled to where I wanted to put Miami and Philadelphia, or not Miami and Philadelphia, Miami and Atlanta, because they're both going to be solid teams. But the thing with Miami is I feel like, first of all, Kyle Lowry is a big question. The reason I say that is because Kyle Lowry is 37. He's going to be 38 this NBA season, and he's getting up there in age, man. Kyle Lowry didn't have exactly a great season last year, but I really feel like we're finally going to see decline on his end. Not only that, but Duncan Robinson also had a relatively bad season last year compared to his standards. He got his bread, and now it's like he is not what he used to be. You know, it's very hard to put a guy out there who pretty much only shoots threes. You know, he's like, you know, their Kyle Korver, essentially. But I just feel like Miami teams are starting to figure them out. You know, I just feel like, you know, Jimmy Butler is going to be what he's going to be. Tyler Hero, I look for him to take a step forward. But I just feel like Miami's not going to be as good as they were in previous years. I feel like the East is way too stacked, and I just feel like they're going to finish, you know, in the 5 through 8 range, essentially, because the East is just ridiculous. Number 6, I have the Boston Celtics. Listen, man, they're losing Robert Williams for a bit of the early crunch of the season here. They lost Ime Udoka. I have no idea how the players are going to respond to Joe Mazzulla. So that's why I have Boston at number 6. They could easily be a higher team. Jason Tatum is a superstar. They have Jaylen Brown. They still have Marcus Smart. It's just, you know, they're a team. It's just, I don't know what their scheme's gonna be. You know what I'm saying? Is Joe Mazzulla gonna prioritize defense? Is he gonna run the same offensive schemes that Ime Udoka did? There's too many question marks there for me. So really, the reason they're at 6 is a matter of not knowing how Joe Mazzulla is gonna handle this team. You know, is he going to take, I doubt he's going to take the ball out of Jason Tatum's hands, but, you know, is he going to, you know, prioritize Jaylen Brown more this year? Or, you know, because Jaylen Brown, you know, arguably in the playoffs last year looked like a better player than Jason Tatum. So does that warrant him getting more touches this year on the offensive side of the ball? I truly don't know. Boston, if I had to take a guess, Boston is going to continue to be a very good defensive team. But the offensive side of the ball is what I have question marks about. So that's why I have them at 6. It's a little low, even for me. I'm like, you know, 6 a little low for the Boston Celtics, considering they should probably be in the 4 through 1 range. But for right now, I have them at 6 just because I don't know what Joe Mazzulla is going to do. So that's number 6. Number 7, I have the Brooklyn Nets. Listen, man. Say what you want about Brooklyn. They added TJ Warren. They have Royce O'Neal. Joe Harris comes back. They brought back Patty Mills. You know, Ben Simmons looks like he's actually going to play for them this year. So Brooklyn's a team that could surprise some people. I know last year what didn't look good for them, but they brought back KD. They brought back Kyrie Irving. Ben Simmons, I think, is going to definitely open up the perimeter a little bit for them. So right now I have them at 7. They're a team that could be higher. But for now, I have the Brooklyn Nets at 7. Mostly because also defense is not exactly their strong suit. They don't have any like real, you know, defensive stoppers on their team besides Ben Simmons. So, you know, obviously Ben Simmons is going to be defending the best player every night, which is, you know, I guess a good and a bad thing maybe, because, you know, depending on how Ben Simmons approaches this season. But the Brooklyn Nets have a lot of questions about them, and that's why they're at 7. It's just I worry about chemistry with KD wanting to leave, Kyrie wanting to stay. You know, are they going to get frustrated with Ben Simmons and his jump shot situation? So yeah, I have the Nets at 7. I still think they'll make the playoffs. It's just I don't think they're going to be a very high-seeded team in the playoffs. Number 8 is the Toronto Raptors. Listen, man, I was pretty disrespectful to Pascal Siakam last year, and I think he made the All-NBA third team this year. And he didn't even play the full season last year. Yeah, it looks like he's going to play the full season this year. Fred VanVleet is very good. Scotty Barnes is a monster. They still have OG Anunoby. They still have Gary Trent Jr. They prioritize defense. They're going to make the playoffs. Okay, I'm just going to tell you right now, the Toronto Raptors are going to make the playoffs. So that's my 1 through 8. So for number 1, I got Cleveland. Number 2, I got Milwaukee. Number 3, Philadelphia. Number 4 is Atlanta. Number 5 is Miami. Number 6 is Boston. Number 7 is Brooklyn. And number 8 is the Toronto Raptors. So that means at number 9, I have the Chicago Bulls. And the reason I have the Chicago Bulls at number 9 is because their defense is absolutely fucking horrendous. And on top of it, Lonzo Ball, they have no idea when he's going to be available to play. And Lonzo Ball was a huge part of their success early on. I'm going to assume Alex Caruso is going to be the starting point guard for them in the meantime. However, that means their bench suffers. Listen, man, Chicago brought in Andre Drummond, but it's Andre Drummond, you know what I'm saying? They do have some good players on their roster. I just think to myself, they also picked up Goran Dragic, and I am not a huge believer in Goran Dragic. He's capable. It's just, I feel like losing Lonzo Ball is a huge deal for them, and I also don't think DeMar DeRozan's going to play at an MVP level again. I kind of feel like last season was maybe a fluke. I could definitely be wrong about that, but I just feel like it's very unlikely DeMar DeRozan has, finishes top 3, top 4 in MVP voting again this year, especially when, a lot of these teams are now healthy. I just think to myself, we're going to get a full season of Joel Embiid and James Harden. Giannis is there. You've got Jason Tatum. KD is always a threat. It's just, I just feel like the days of DeMar DeRozan being an MVP candidate are kind of over. So that's my opinion on that. Number 10, I have the Detroit Pistons. So, 9 through 11 is obviously your playing teams, 8, 9, 10, 11. Number 10, I have the Detroit Pistons, man. Look, they're a really young team, but they got some good guys on their team. Jaden Ivey, I think, is going to be Rookie of the Year. Cade Cunningham is going to get to play his natural position of shooting guard. Jalen Duren's a monster. They brought in Bojan Bogdanovic. Sadiq Bey is very good. I like what this team has on paper, and I think they could make the play-in this year. I have them at number 10. Now, number 11, I have the Indiana Pacers, and a lot of people might be like, the Pacers? And as a Pacers fan, even I'm like, why the fuck do I have the Pacers there? And I originally had the Knicks there. I originally didn't even have the Pacers making the play-in. The thing is, I think the Pacers are capable of winning 1 or 2 more games than the Knicks are. The Knicks are just in a situation where they're hoping Julius Randle can return to all-star caliber form, which I don't think is going to happen. It would appear as if the team is kind of given up on Tom Thibodeau. I'm going to call it what it is. They were horrendous on defense last year. They weren't exactly a good offensive team. Oftentimes their offensive sets look like whoever offense. Obviously with Jalen Brunson, that could change, and it could take some pressure off Julius Randle, some pressure off RJ Barrett. It's just, I don't think they have enough. The Knicks have this horrible tendency of shelling out a shit ton of money for players that are probably not worth it. I'm not saying Jalen Brunson isn't worth the money that he got paid, but Julius Randle is a giant question mark. Evan Fournier is a giant question mark. Jalen Brunson, we have yet to see if he's really going to live up to that contract. I think he will. But RJ Barrett is not exactly the greatest outside shooter in the world. He had a decent three-point shooting season a year or 2 ago, and then it seemed like he went back to shooting shitty from 3 or just shooting shitty in general. So I don't know, man. The idea that this team's 3 best players are Julius Randle, RJ Barrett, and Jalen Brunson, and they're expecting that to get them to the playoffs when Julius Randle's a giant question mark, and so is RJ Barrett to some extent. I kind of would argue Jalen Brunson is probably the best player on their roster at the moment. But that's why I have the Indiana Pacers there, and it's mostly because the Indiana Pacers at least play like a team. They have Tyrese Halliburton, who I think is going to take a step forward this year. They have Jalen Smith, who I think is going to be very good. They're bringing back Miles Turner. As much as I hate Miles Turner, he's still a rim protecting threat. He's still a threat to shoot threes. They got Benedict Mathurin, who's a really good rookie, athletic, can shoot the ball. Defense needs a little work. Chris Duarte is like a 3-and-D guard who reminds me of Klay Thompson every time I watch him play. I just feel like a full season of Tyrese Halliburton, a full season of Jalen Smith, a full season of Chris Duarte. We get Miles Turner. They still have Buddy Hield. I just think to myself, the Pacers might be good enough to snag that 11th spot. And also the Pacers don't seem like they've mentally checked out on their head coach. The Knicks appeared that way last year. The body language was shit. The offense was shit. The defense was shit. So if you ask me, I think the team is going to be shit. So that's my reasoning. Otherwise, if the Knicks would have hired another head coach in the offseason and got rid of Tom Thibodeau, I would probably have the Knicks at 11, if I'm being honest with you. But the idea that they brought back Thibs, and it just seems like nobody is listening to him. I mean, they were the number 2 defense in the NBA when Julius Randle was an all-star. Last year, they were one of the worst defenses in the NBA. Like, they kind of fell off a cliff, if I'm correct. Actually, that even might be a stretch. I don't think they were the worst defense in the NBA, but they were nowhere near what they were a couple of years ago. If I look last year, last year they were actually, okay, so opponent points per game, they were 6th. So they were still decent on defense, but their defensive rating was 11th after being, the season before, they were number 1. If I'm correct. Yeah, the season before they were number 1 on defense, and they were ranked 3rd in defensive rating, whereas opposed to last year, they were ranked 11th. They were still 6th in opponent points per game, but I just feel like this team is it just seems like not only that, but Tom Thibodeau doesn't seem like he has a plan on offense. So, anyway, tell me what you guys think about this down below in the comment section below. A like helps me out. Subscribe if you guys want to see more on the Fast Break Report, and out of this motherfucker. Peace, guys.